Hey guys, and welcome back to a brand new video of the Tech Buddies podcast YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be about Apple and how they are facing so many problems right now that they might almost be at a brink of a downfall. I think this all started with iOS 18 and how when iOS 18 was launched, it was a really buggy experience, and even right now there are a lot of bugs. Like Linus Tech Tips keeps pointing out a lot of bugs which he's facing with iOS 18, and even I have noticed a few bugs here and there with my iPhone. And this is not how Apple used to be when iOS updates used to launch. First of all, it used to launch to every phone because obviously their portfolio is lesser, but that was a good thing. But they used to be the most stable updates. With the iOS 18 launch, there are a lot of bugs, um, and it's a mess with many things still missing. And um, the missing things are the Apple Intelligence features. So let's talk about that. It's sort of the elephant in the room for Apple at this point. So Apple back in WWDC of 2024, under the pressure of investors, probably because Android and Samsung, especially with their Galaxy AI, had launched a bunch of AI features which were already in their phones, and Apple was kind of feeling left out, and they also launched a bunch of AI features under the name of Apple Intelligence, and they didn't turn out to be as good as they marketed it too much, and half of the existing Apple Intelligence features are a half-baked mess, and most of these features are not useful. The writing tools are obviously there, which are useful, but apart from that, there's no standout in the Apple Intelligence features, which I can point out. Uh, the features in the Photos app, for example, if you compare it to Galaxy AI, the generative fill or whatever that feature is, which uses AI to erase the objects in the background or things like that. It works way better on Galaxy AI compared to Apple Intelligence. For example, people recently were creating, trying to erase hands. For example, they took a photo with the hand in front of their face and they tried to remove the hand, and Apple Intelligence would just create a random blur sort of an image of the face, whereas Galaxy AI, maybe since it uploads it to the cloud and does all the processing, that's one difference which you need to know, but it at least does that, and it's able to recreate faces of that the person pretty accurately. So that is pretty cool to see and compare. And the other Apple Intelligence features also which come to mind are Image Playground, which isn't that great. Who wants to create new emojis when the old ones are already so boring? But yeah, I don't know. Some of these features are just like not useful as such. It's just more of a novelty kind of AI feature. There's no other AI feature which I can distinctively remember from um, Apple. So that is the whole mess which they've created. And of course, we got to talk about Siri. They announced a whole new revamp to Siri, which makes it more contextually aware of all the things in your phone, and it makes it a lot more useful than what it currently is. But that is taking a long time to roll out, and some rumors were saying that it's going to be delayed even further and it's going to finally launch in 2026, which is really bad for Apple. And they are also moving around executives from one team to another. For example, Mike Rockwell has been moved from the Vision products team to handle Siri and speed up its launch. So, yeah, that's all about Apple Intelligence. I don't want to talk much about it. It's pretty clear by the usage. If you look at people, also, they don't talk much about Apple Intelligence online. They just I mean, I've not seen many tweets about Apple Intelligence, but you see stuff about Google and Samsung out there. So that is that. Coming to something more uh, surprising, and that is the iPhone 16e ad. If you would have noticed the one with the floaty that they have. Generally, Apple ads, as pointed out by someone on Twitter, um are more focused about the device itself. If it's the iPhone or the iPad or the MacBook is highlighted more and it's shown in a really big size to catch people's attention. But if you look at this iPhone 16e ad, the floaty or whatever which was holding the iPhone 16e was way bigger, and the iPhone 16e was not really in the frame. So people are pointing that out, that the iPhone 16e ad is very unlike of how Apple makes their ads for their products. And yeah, like people in general are obviously complaining about Apple not innovating as such. And like this tweet says, on it's a hot take tweet, which I'll read the whole tweet out. Apple as a company has lost focus and direction, wasted investment on a car project, no progress or on non-invasive blood glucose monitoring, very few hardware changes on any products, nothing innovative for years. iOS 18 rollout is a mess, like I talked about. Existing Apple Intelligence features are a half-baked mess, which I talked about as well. More wasted money on a kind of flop virtual reality headset, which is the Vision Pro, that nobody bought or cares about, and weird marketing and severe drop in software quality. Like I said, iOS 18 is the severe dip in quality, and many people are saying that iOS 19 shouldn't add any new features. It should just be a pure stability uh, update. So that is that. And about the Vision Pro, I think some people will kind of consider it a flop. Some people might consider it a hit because a lot of industries are using it, be it the medical industry or even some news were coming out that Ferrari is using it to train their service center people, and the real estate owners are using it to show off their properties and things like that. And developers have got access to the thing, and they can obviously create more and more use cases. So that is about the Vision Pro. And yeah, I think very few hardware changes. Yeah, that's true. If you look at the 13 to the 14, it was just a the 12 megapixel camera was slightly better, and there's no other difference if you look at it. The 14 to the 15, there were many changes, but it was not what people wanted. They upgraded from the 12 megapixel to the 48 megapixel main sensor, and they added the dynamic island, which I don't know. Many people like the dynamic island, many people don't. So that's another point of contention. Um, the iPhone 16 series, they just changed the design of the cameras, and they added the camera button, which many people are not using. So there's no innovation as such. If you look at the Chinese manufacturers, they're innovating a lot on the battery tech, the silicon carbon batteries. They're able to provide 7,000 mAh batteries in a really thin form factor, and Apple and Samsung don't seem to care about that too much. Charging speeds, the Android manufacturers are touching 120 watt, 240 watt, 320 watt even, and Apple and Samsung are still stuck on 25 watt. At least Samsung is on 45 watt. But yeah, these are all the things which Apple should be innovating on, not just changing the camera design here and there. And they get trolled for it a lot, but their iPhones also sell well. So I think their thing is, if it's doing well, then why change it? And that's the similar approach Samsung is taking now, but that's for another time. The next thing I want to talk about is the problems which they're facing from due to the geopolitical issues of the world, and one of them is not geopolitical as such, but it is uh, all the guidelines they have to face from EU. The EU's demands just don't end for Apple, and at this point, it feels as though Apple is being crushed so much that they just might exit the EU market altogether, and it might be better for them. But yeah, that aside, the other main geopolitical implication for Apple is with China, with Trump increasing the tariffs on China and things like that. It's becoming very difficult for Apple as well, considering that their entire manufacturing is based out of China, be it the Foxconn plants or I think Foxconn is their main manufacturing partner, and they're fully based out of China. And if you see, like Apple has slowly moved on to the China plus one policy, manufacturing phones in India, China, I mean India and Vietnam and things like that. But they are not fully manufactured in these countries. They're mostly assembled in these countries. So the main hardware components still come from China. So this it's going to really affect them in terms of managing both Trump and China in terms of the supply chain. And recently, 2 days back, Trump has also announced a bunch of tariffs on countries. So countries like Taiwan get 34% tariff, while China also gets around the same value, but they already had 50% before, so it's almost 84% um, tariffs on China and things like that. And because of that, the bill for an iPhone 16 Pro, which is pre-tariff, was $549. The new tariff is 296. So the new total bill of materials for the iPhone 16 Pro will be $846. So that's like a $300 difference. And Apple is obviously not going to absorb these costs. They're trying to maintain their profit structure and they'll pass this on to the consumers. So the iPhone 16 Pro, which is around $1,500, it's going to be $1,800, or it could even go to $2,000. The iPhone 17 might be priced at 99,999 or 1 lakh rupees. iPhone 17 Air 1 lakh 20,000, iPhone 17 Pro 1 lakh 40,000, and iPhone 17 Pro Max 1 lakh 60,000. So at this price point, I mean, if you compare it, 79,990 and 99,990, it's an increase of a whole 20,000, and I don't think um, people will be ready to pay that price, especially in India, maybe the US market, because they're still tied to the Apple ecosystem a bit more. They might buy it, but yeah, I don't think the Indian market is ready for an increase in the price of iPhones, and Apple might have to absorb these losses and um restructure their profit margins if they want to sell it at the same price. And it's really tough times for Apple at this point, and we'll have to see how Apple bounces back from this. The tariffs are increasing the price of the cost of goods by almost 54%. So that's something Apple will have to think about. If I had to conclude with a silver lining for Apple, that would be their M chips, of course, and the value which they're able to provide with the M chips, especially if you look at the M4 MacBook Air, which was launched at $999 or 99,990 Indian rupees. At that price point, you cannot get any better laptop which matches that performance. Although macOS is a bit limited in terms of the apps you can install and things like that, that's a separate issue. But in terms of raw performance, you can't get a laptop better than the M4 MacBook Air at that price point. Similarly, the iPads also are a decent value, especially the iPad 11 Gen, which was recently launched. At 35,000, you can't get a better tablet for that price point. But then again, you have to pay almost 10,000 extra for the Apple Pencil, which is atrocious when you get S Pen in the box when you buy a Galaxy Tab. At least the high end ones, I'm not sure about the mid range ones. So yeah, these are all the problems with Apple, and they are the most valued tech company. So I think it's important to highlight these problems and acknowledge them. And we'll have to see how Apple bounces back from this situation. What do you think? If you have used the Apple Intelligence features, what do you think about that? And if you have any thoughts, let us know in the comments below. And I'll catch you in the next one. It's a pretty long video, but I'd recommend you watch it till the end. And yeah, bye.